Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 191, which is called Stray Dog. So this is the second of these two episodes covering Kawaki's escape attempt before we move in the next episode into continuing from the manga arc coming up next, with Kawaki, I suppose, meeting Naruto some more and Boruto. So really cool stuff coming up. But this was actually, I think, quite a solid episode. I appreciate the sort of early character development stuff that they gave here for, like, if you're kind of just watching the anime, that you get straight away this sense that, okay, Kawaki, it makes sense why he doesn't trust people because of what we're being told, at least in part, about his backstory. We don't know the full sense for it, but clearly, abused by basically both of his father figures in the past. He's tried to run away from Jigen, of course, at this point, and that is why he kind of is so standoffish around people, why he doesn't trust anyone. And even though Sumeri is like probably one of the nicest characters in the entire series, and she handles meeting Kawaki again in probably the best way possible, you could see why he still can't bring himself to trust her, even though she explains to him why they're actually quite similar. And a lot of that stuff I actually thought worked quite well. They went for some pretty obvious sort of symbolism here of, like, Kawaki meets the stray dog. He ends up actually helping it out because he realizes how similar it is to himself. It's been injured, it's just trying to survive, get some food to eat. He finds some food, but he gives it to the dog. He actually bandages the dog's leg, but that's exactly what he needs someone to do for him. But when Kawaki gets it, instead of like the dog who kind of trusts Kawaki after that point, he can't bring himself to do that quite yet with Sumeri. So it's highlighting the importance of Kawaki's backstory, of like, this is a defining thing for him. And the big question for Kawaki as a character going forward is going to be, what can break through all of this? What is going to be the thing that finally gets him to trust people? Will he be able to trust anyone? And what sort of a character will he become if he finally does learn how to trust people? Because we get to see a little bit of that caring side of Kawaki here, to show that he's not just all the rudeness and attacking people. He can see when something is similar to him and, care for this dog. You can see that he was somewhat impacted by Sumeri revealing sort of her own sort of similar backstory. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of potential here. And for like an anime only extra stuff being added onto the manga content here, this actually did, I think, a very good job at setting the stage, in that you have some core ideas about Kawaki at this point, and now we just have to get into a lot of the specifics to see where they go with him, in that obviously Kawaki meeting Naruto in this episode is very significant. For one, because in the manga, of course, Kawaki meets Naruto in a slightly different way, but the anime is now going for the idea that they had this meeting, I suppose, prior to the manga accurate meeting that they're probably going to have in the next episode. I do wonder how accurate they're going to be to some of these scenes, in that I think the thing that surprised me the most about Naruto meeting Kawaki here was actually that Kawaki just directly got to see and interact with with Naruto in his full, Kurama chakra mode, whereas that's actually kind of a big reveal, kind of really monumentous moment almost in the manga. I still think they can do it, in that, this was right in the middle of a kind of action set piece. Naruto, by the time he came down to Kawaki, I suppose had maybe calmed down a little, but even though the mode was still active, Kawaki maybe wasn't thinking about how powerful or not it was. So when Naruto uses it later on, I'm guessing maybe in the next episode or the one after that, it will still have impact when it happens. So they're just some minor changes. Like, I would be a little bit frustrated with the anime if they've basically taken that later scene out with the Naruto showing off his Kurama chakra mode to Kawaki, to give it to this scene here, which I don't think had the impact that the manga scene had. But we'll see what they do. I still think they'll keep in something along those lines in the manga. It might not be exactly the same, but I did appreciate what they did here. Again, it was a very good use of Sumeri. That was probably the most effective thing across these two episodes, was really connecting Sumeri and Kawaki with their stories. Now, it is interesting because, without spoiling the recent manga chapter that much, all I'll say is just that Sumeri and Kawaki did have scenes together, and Sumeri isn't typically a focus within the manga, but they specifically had scenes with her and Kawaki. Here is the anime giving us some earlier development of their dynamic, and having Sumeri really be sort of almost like one of the main characters across these two episodes. Now, the connection between the two is obviously because their backstories are quite similar ultimately, in terms of their parental figure, implanting a weapon of some sort in them and not really treating them all that well, sort of turning them into a monster, in terms of Kawaki with the powers that he has and how it's altered him and so on. Sumeri, of course, with what she did much earlier in the manga, in like one of the first arcs properly, and then also with the connection to Nue, who is actually a monster. So just that idea that Kawaki, the significance behind Kawaki saying that, like, oh, you're a monster too, in the last episode, isn't lost on us as we go through this one. So they really have connected these two together, and from a simplistic point of view, what the manga seems to have done is sort of almost latched on to the fact that this maybe was happening in the anime at this point, and just gone with, okay, Sumeri has cared for Kawaki in the past, so she has a bit of a connection to him. Here's another situation where Kawaki is like in need of someone to sort of care or help him. Let's create that connection here. It's an interesting one because if they hadn't been so clear about the whole, Sumeri likes Boruto situation, you'd almost be maybe leaning more down the road of like, are they kind of maybe setting up Sumeri Kawaki as like a potential relationship they might go for? But I'm not sure. But it is interesting that, again, one of the few things they haven't accurately adapted in the last anime arc was that they left out the Sumeri scene where she talks about, the other girls liking Boruto, and basically Sumeri admitting to Sarada that she likes him, kind of. That was an interesting choice within the anime to kind of move away from that, but then to have something quite similar happen in the recent manga chapter. So, romance, not a particular focus of Naruto. It always tends to get people quite angry over very little scenes. But it's something interesting. It's interesting character dynamics. At the very least, what they've done here is create sort of a significance between, Kawaki and Sumeri, that she is a character who he has a dynamic with now. So it's not going to be just as simple as the only characters that Kawaki really has a dynamic with are like Boruto, Naruto, like Jigen and Amado. Like it's not just like those few characters. He also does have an interesting kind of symbolic connection now with Sumeri, which is the point of like these two episodes. In terms of like action and stuff like that, there is not too much to talk about. You could definitely tell that this episode was a little stretched out. There were definitely a lot of sections of just, Kawaki wandering through the town, through the streets, just reflecting on like, my arm hasn't healed yet, I'm hungry. Cut to the next scene, he's sort of doing roughly the same thing, but they have the dog, try and help him, and that worked again. The obvious symbolism that they were going for, stray dog. Actually, the stray dog title applies to Kawaki as well. So him finally eating the food that the dog brings him is quite a significant moment. The action primarily came from the police force of the Leaf Village, it's not the Leaf Village. It's the police force of this village, which is in the Land of Fire, I suppose is more the way to say it. Being a little bit overly aggressive. Like I wasn't sure what I was meant to feel about those scenes where, you know, Sarda's kind of just being like, no, don't shoot, like she's down there, and they still go ahead and shoot the fire jutsu at Kawaki, even though Sumere is like right there. Of just like, do they not care? They're fine with like her sort of being collateral damage. That was a bit weird. It was just for the plot, I guess they needed like attacks to come in to Kawaki to put him in a, you know, tough situation to activate the karma mark. But it made the police look quite bad in an era where things are meant to be better than that. But it's probably reading too much into that as being sort of like a major problem when you know, Kawaki is a major threat. They felt they needed to act quickly because this could have gone really badly. So there's a couple of different approaches, but I thought it was a little overboard for the police. But again, that's maybe where some of the nuance in the writing maybe fell apart a little bit with this episode, but it's only a minor point. Beyond that, yeah, just Naruto arriving, he blocks Kawaki's sort of death beam thing up in the sky, and they also showed that Kawaki, who was about to fire that beam at the police officers, stopped when they kind of cleared out of the way, and his beam was about to hit a child. He'd redirected it up, highlighting that he's not just this, you know, villain madman that's willing to kill anyone. He, you know, like he cared about the dog, he cares about the kid, and, you know, can form these connections. So yeah, there's hope for him. And the fact that Naruto had that scene with Sumere where she, even though she's kind of injured and like nearly unconscious, she makes sure to tell Naruto that, listen to him, he is similar to me, the face that he has, I've been there before. And I suppose she knows that Naruto understands that perspective sort of as well, of just sort of, you know, being the outcast in a situation like this. So Naruto does take a pretty understanding approach here, not being aggressive like at all with Kawaki, just blocking his blast and then blocking his punch and just telling him to just stand down. And we'll see where we go from there in the next episode, which will be covering some manga content, because the preview, interestingly, they did a more sort of stylized preview where they just showed like pretty much just one shot, younger Kawaki just talking about his past. That bodes well for potentially a really nicely animated episode, hopefully. But again, it seems to highlight the significance of the episode coming up, which it is. Like, Kawaki is a very, very important character, so getting his character development right is good. And I think it's been a while since we've had a proper, you know, character development arc in Boruto, and Kawaki has allowed us to do that now. Of just, this guy needs a lot of development, and there's a clear path for that development. And the fact that Naruto says, I've made my decision, I'm going to be the one to look, you know, to watch over you, look out for you. We'll see the exact details of that, I suppose, next time out. But yeah, just pretty exciting time. I didn't mind this, you know, 2-episode excursion into sort of, you know, anime only, because it added onto things. It made sense for something to kind of happen along the way. The development you've given to Sumere and Kawaki before you go into the manga content has actually been pretty solid. Now, like I said, the only maybe worry I have is just that because of the way Naruto met Kawaki here, might they slightly change some of the scenes that are meant to happen, like coming up just next with Naruto and Kawaki. I hope we still get most of them, because a lot of this stuff is so well done. I'd hate to see them like change it just because they had to do some anime only thing. So they're my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are, but that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.